Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Stryd Power Podcast. As always, my name is Evan. Today, I am joined by Stryd Ambassador Monica. Monica, how are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. This is a brand new series that we're doing, highlighting our Stryd ambassadors and covering their training plan and talking all about their goals, their past running history, how they started running with Stryd. And Monica is joining us today to give us all that information and more. Monica, the first question that I have for you, and one of my favorite things asking any runner all the time, is how did you get into running? What is your running background? What was the reason you decided to start running?
Yeah, I started running years ago, but I don't like it at all. And it was to lose weight and to get a better condition. And after 1 minute running, I thought I'm going to be dead like that. So I don't like it at all. But I did it more and often. And so now I did it, I think, a year, and then I stopped and was going to the gym.
Mhm.
And that, for me, that was better. But after a few years, I started again, and it was also going better. And in 2015, I was doing my first race, and it was fine because I became third. So, and it was only 5K, but and then it started for real. So 7 years ago.
After your race in 2015 and
Yeah.
a 5K, what do you think, if you can remember back to that time, the difference in your mindset, maybe about from the very first couple steps you mentioned, like the first minute, you started, everybody, I feel like before, and everybody who's a runner feels this way, before you actually start, you have these ideas in your head about how exactly it's going to go. But then once you're out there, you're just doing the activity. You're just running. What do you think the difference in your mindset was? Maybe the first run you went on versus running a 5K race where you finished third and you had a pretty good accomplishment there a couple of years ago. What was that kind of difference in your mind?
No, you became better. And it was also when I was to the finish and I heard that. So, I can do this. And it's not that I am the last one who finished, but I also have very much respect for the last one. So it's not like that. But and so it was like that. And then you run more. This after 5K became 10. And yeah, and then
Awesome.
it was really out of hand now, but
Yeah. What type of different training have you done in the past? Because you mentioned starting running, dedicated kind of to running and building up that fitness, and then going to the gym and then coming back to running and maybe running 5K, 10K, some longer stuff. What is your different types of training looked like? Have you followed structured training plans and stuff, or what was your kind of general approach to that?
in the beginning I was follow a training schema for beginners. So it was 1 minute running, 2 minutes walk, and then you go further to 5K. And after that, I did some things by myself. And later, I want to train for the half marathon. So I asked my trainer at the gym if he could write a schedule for me. And he did. And I followed that one. But then I ran a 35K trail run before I did the half marathon. And I finished as first woman there. So,
Wow. That's,
yeah.
I mean, totally different
Yeah,
doing, I
yeah,
mean, trail in general, but
yeah.
that far of a distance is so much different than a road half marathon. How did that kind of feel, maybe knowing you could have done that and you did that race, and then all of a sudden, oh, you just have to run 21 kilometers on the road? Like, that must have felt totally different.
Yeah, and it was so much more fun on the trail. So, and then in 2016 I did a few marathons on the road here in the Netherlands, then Rotterdam, because you also say that's the most beautiful one. And I also did Berlin and Valencia. And after Valencia, I was saying I will never do this again. And I'm going to focus on the trails. So
that's something I feel like a lot of runners identify with too. Maybe it's not the first marathon you finish. Maybe it's one of the first few when you say, you know what, I'm sick of this. I'm tired of doing this. I don't want to feel like this again. But then somehow over time, that itch comes back and you really, really feel that sort of urge to do it. What is your, I guess, kind of main difference that you could associate with doing a trail running program or training plan versus maybe you're doing a 5K or a 10K plan or something like that? What are those main differences that you noticed in those types of training plans?
For me, it was the training plans for a marathon. It was a lot of speed work, interval training, and that kind of stuff. It was always on time. It was, you must running also with the doing ones. You must run that pace and in the intervals also, and you must go faster. And at the trails, you go to the nature and it's more enjoy. And if you want to make a picture, you will do it. And it's, for me, it's more fun. And if you want to sit and drink something, you take that time. So that's the big difference for me. And it's also on the trails, it's more socialized with the other runners.
Right. Absolutely. Because usually if it's a goal marathon or somebody's out for a nice long run workout, they're not going to stop and take a picture of maybe the bike path they're running on, because it's not as pretty as a forest opening. What do you think about maybe kind of the differences? You mentioned it's more fun because the terrain and the surface you're running on is changing all the time. Is that something you like to mix up to, not just running on that hard surface and you kind of get to run on the softer surfaces sometimes?
Yeah. And it's also, I go a lot of time to Belgium for the trails. It's not that far away from where I live. Yeah, and it's so beautiful there. And also in the Netherlands, so you've got a lot of beautiful places where you can trail in. But you miss the altimeters in the Netherlands.
Right.
So for that, then Belgium is better. Or you go to Germany, a few places that also is doing good to do for one day. So, but I like it so much more.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing I'm interested now here is, you mentioned you were always going off of pace and you were, past training plans maybe focused on you have to hit this type of speed for workouts and stuff. Had you used like kind of mixing things like heart rate in the past too in any sort of training, or what was your approach to maybe finding training plans structured by different types of intensities over the past few years?
Yeah, I did for a while on the heart rate. So I did also a test for what my heart rate is and with the zones. So I did that. And after in 2017, I couldn't run anymore. I got injured, and the doctors were also telling me that I will never ever run again. But that's also different. And after that, I had the goal to run again, but not on time, and just listen to my body and run. And so it was slow, but the distance became a lot more. So then it became, after 40K and 50, then 80, 100 mile. And a few weeks ago, it was 272K. So,
wow. That's amazing. what would you maybe go back and tell your your past self running your first 5K, or even like running that first run where you said you ran a minute and you're like, oh man, like I
Yeah.
don't think I like this anymore. Now you can run, almost 300 kilometer stuff. What is that kind of like advice that you might want to pass on to past you who wanted to stop after a minute?
Yeah, it's a feeling that you have. If you it starts if you want to do it, then go for it. But don't look at other people, how fast they are, or how they train. Look at your own body and what you can do, and yeah, build that up.
I absolutely love that. There's a phrase I think I've heard in the past, and it relates here too, is that when you compare yourself to other people, specifically other runners too, it takes away from that joy, right? So comparing yourself and trying to say, well, I didn't run as fast as they did, but they were running a totally different course and they were doing a totally different type of thing. It just takes away from that love that you have for the sport. The kind of next question about that, obviously, because you're one of our Stryd ambassadors, you use Stryd. What was maybe the first time you heard about Stryd, or the first time you seriously considered adding Stryd into your training? Because you had different types of experiences in running, like you mentioned. You'd used heart rate and found zones. You used pace as a prescription. You just decided to listen to your body. What convinced you to try Stryd and integrating running power into your training?
Now, I don't know exactly, but a year ago, I think I heard for the first time of the Stryd. And because I was building the case of feeling and to listen to my body. But I also want to do a little bit more speed work, because I want a little bit faster on the trails. But when you are running in the woods, your watch is not that screw with the pace. And so you could run on heart rate, but then the other problem is you've got a race vest on, and then your heart rate band, it's not fitting well. Now, then I heard of Stryd, then you can run on the wattage. And so I thought maybe that's an option for do the speed work in the woods, because then you can run on that. So that's why I want to try it.
Yeah, absolutely. For the integration of running power on the trails specifically too, you mentioned, if your regular watch isn't connecting to satellites because you're running in forest and there's signal blockage, or you're already wearing a vest for hydration and nutrition and stuff, adding a chest strap onto that is just adding a whole nother thing. When you use Stryd specifically for trail stuff, what is your approach there? Do you try and just average a certain wattage? Do you try and keep it below a certain range when you run up a hill, or hit a certain target when you run downhill? Do you reflect on the data afterward? What is your kind of way that you like to use power, maybe while you're out there running on the trails?
Now, for now, it's when I am here in the Netherlands. It's not that much uphill, so it's more like flat. But like last Saturday, I was running also in the sand, and that's really heavy. So for me, it was can I when I'm going out of the forest and going to in the sand, what is doing the power zones of the power while running, and can I keep them the same? So that's what I want to try and to use. And I know when I'm going to Belgium for climbing stuff, I know I'm not that fast with climbing. It's not my specialty. So for that, I didn't use it yet. And I think that in a few months, I want to try it, use it there.
For the next few months, are you following a certain type of training plan? And if you're following a training plan, what kind of training goals do you have along the way?
Now, for now, because I've done my biggest race a few weeks ago,
Mhm.
and I need to do one more race of that series
Mhm.
in July. But in between, I want to do some speed work because I also have set a goal for myself to do again a marathon on the road, and I want to see if I can run faster. And yeah, yesterday I did a half marathon on the road, and it was faster than in 2015. So
Wow. Was it
yes,
a overall personal best, personal
yeah.
record for the half marathon?
Yes.
How fast did you run and how much did you beat your personal record by?
It was not that much, but it was 1 hour and 40 minutes and 7 seconds yesterday. And in 2015, it was like 50 seconds more.
Mhm.
But I didn't do any speed work at all the last year. So,
Right.
so
Yeah.
without speed work, I was faster.
And just running a, huge race too, and like having all that volume kind of shows maybe that consistency and that buildup over time
Yeah,
that you've set for yourself is just as important as doing, a couple weeks of speed work ahead
yeah,
of a goal race. And if you can just go out and, I would say, pretty casually set a personal record and go out there and run a really, really good race, that's absolutely fantastic. What is your goal race in July? You said it's a part of this series. Is it a trail oriented series, or what does
yeah.
that last kind of race look like for you?
Yeah, the last one is it's a round of 6K, but you must run it minimal of 28 times to get 100 miles. And if I'm finished that one, I will be the first Dutch woman who won all the 4 races in a year.
Wow,
Yeah, it's
that's astounding. What does your kind of like pacing look like for that ideally? So if it's a, I would say relatively short loop, yeah, six kilometers is relatively short enough that you have to run it multiple times. What does that kind of pacing strategy look like on race day for you?
for that day, it's because it's we start Friday night at 8 o'clock, and then you run the first loop, and at 9 o'clock the second one, and it's every time at yeah, that you
Mhm.
have a starting time. But for me, I want to run it in like 48 minutes because then I've got 12 minutes left to eat and to make yeah, sure that I can start good enough for the second for the round after that.
Right. Totally.
Yeah,
That's absolutely amazing to me. Is that, I think I've heard of the style that race. People call it like a
backyard.
backyard
Yeah.
ultra or something like that. That it looks so fun to me, but then the cutoffs where people just say like, I see the clock ticking and I'm just deciding I'm not gonna do another one. But if you maybe pace yourself and you understand about, doing a certain type of training, and then the fact that you can run, almost a 300-kilometer race that must give you a ton of confidence heading
Yeah.
into something like that. And then also the goal of, being the first Dutch woman to complete the series too. That is something that I imagine is pretty motivating along the whole training plan, but then also come race day, that's something that you can kind of reflect on. That's pretty special.
Yeah, I want it so bad, so I'm focused on that one.
Yeah.
And yeah, and in the meanwhile, because I know I've done a few backyards in past years.
Mhm.
So and in April I do also backyard because in October there will be the World Champions of the backyard.
Mm.
And I want to be in the Dutch team.
Yeah.
So that's a good exercise in
Right.
April.
Great preparation for it. It gets you, yeah, pretty nicely set up for it too. So you are a few weeks into, training a little bit more seriously for this race. How is training going? What type of things, I guess, are you focusing on a little bit more specifically right now? Coming off of a, half marathon personal best, you have to be in pretty good like lifetime shape. So like probably some of the best running shape you've been in ever. But what is the general sort of training focus? If you're doing speed work, what's a type of session you might be doing? What does your training kind of look like?
Now for now it's 1 day a week I will do a training session on the track. And then I really use also the Stryd for the intervals. And then I will also do a really slow one, but that's also in the plan of the Stryd, because I've downloaded a training schedule. But that's a shorter one. And then also a training with that's a little bit faster, but also nice. And in the weekend, I always run on the trails, and then it depends on what I want, a long one or short one.
Yeah,
it could
absolutely.
Be a 50K, but it's also good at 20K.
Right. Just as long as you're out there, and then like you said, towards the beginning, you're out in nature, you're enjoying it, it's dynamic, it's not necessarily just the same repetitive type of footstep, and you're practicing that kind of skill that comes in handy when you're 96 miles into a race and you need to get a couple more loops to stay in and stuff too. When you're going out on your runs, what type of gear or technology along with Stryd are you using? You mentioned, if you're doing trail stuff, your GPS watch might not pick up the speed and distance stuff quite as well. What type of watch are you using along with Stryd? And maybe you can give us a little bit more insight into what a trail runner uses on top of just shoes and a watch and their Stryd on their shoe.
You use a lot as a trail runner. It's not a cheap hobby. So as a watch, I've got a Garmin, and I just got now the Phoenix 7X, the new one. So because it's also very important that you can navigate on the track. Because the trails that I do for the races, you must navigate by yourself. It's not that they hang marks on the track, so you must follow the track that they give you. And so the Phoenix is very handy with that. And as backup, I always have also some handheld with me. And that's also what in a lot of races that you need. You must do watch and handheld with you for backup.
Yeah, and it's good to practice that in your normal training sessions, just for the race day that nothing has really changed too. What type of shoes do you use? That's like the personal question that I love to ask. Before I came to Stryd, I worked in a running shoe store for multiple years. So running shoes are always a huge passion for me. And I love hearing about the shoes that people are using. So what kind of shoes do you use? Maybe for trail and for road and your track intervals and stuff? What's in your lineup?
I've got a lot of shoes. It depends on the trails. For the track, I really like the Dynafit shoes, but I've also gained a lot of blisters. So then I need the shoes where my feet has more space. So then I'll go on the Ultra. For now, that are the two kinds of shoes that I use. And with the long ones on the race, I also change shoes. And I know that one likes that, the other not. But that's also very personal. And on the road, it doesn't matter. I like Adidas, also On or Ultra, Brooks.
Yeah, so many options to choose from, and as long as you find something that's comfortable for you, depending on the specific requirements, it works for you, which is absolutely great. I think the fun concept of having that wide open toe box where your feet can kind of spread out. I imagine, I've run a couple marathons and my feet usually feel pretty cramped. I cannot imagine running 4 marathons in a row and having maybe my feet be, four times as expanded and stuff. And so
Yeah.
having that little bit more space is very, very useful.
Yeah.
I think one Stryd related question, as we get a little closer to wrapping up too, what kind of feature or features in the whole Stryd ecosystem do you find yourself using or checking the most? So some people might look at just power day to day on their wrist and just do whatever training plan gets loaded. I know a lot of my friends really like looking at their running stress balance, so seeing their number, if it's like -10 or -12 today, depending on where they're at in training. But what type of feature or features do you like looking at or find yourself really paying attention to?
For me, for now, it's the how fast I run and the wattage
Mhm.
there is. Is it and for me it's fun. Then they say like that I run on speed from 5 minutes. Okay, and what does the wattage do then? And when I'm going faster or not? And it's now for me also. It's fun for me. Fun. If I do a run from the Stryd library or from the schedule, how is it to run between the Stryd zones, and how does that feel?
Mhm, mhm.
So that's for me what I am looking at.
Yeah, I love that. The one really cool thing that I don't do much trail running, even though we're based here in Colorado and we have some great mountains just to the west of us. I've done some trail runs, but I don't do trail runs all the time. One of my favorite things, and I would be very, very curious to see how it would look after your super, super long race. If you tag the activity as a trail run, you get your breakdown between your uphill, your downhill, and then your walking breakdown too. And I think that's so interesting because for typical, road 5Ks, people don't pay attention to how much they're kind of going up and down because usually the courses are pretty flat. But
Yeah.
if you go out and you're starting to get all this elevation, those insights I think are super cool. And then if you can, get out to Belgium and Germany, for a nice weekend long run and stuff too, you can run some, I imagine, really, really cool courses where you can kind of change all that elevation too. What's your favorite course that you kind of incorporate in training? If you had to pick anywhere, that you could maybe visit for the day, what's your kind of go-to place that you like?
For training, the Ardennes in Belgium.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What about it kind of draws you there and makes it your favorite?
Every season is a lot different when you go to the Ardennes and you go to the high Fiends.
Mm.
It's really cold and it's a lot of water there, and it's really different every day, and
Yeah.
that's what I like.
And I imagine you can get some pretty cool running photos
Yeah,
too when you're out there and the background kind of changes all the
yeah,
time and the scenery is super nice. One last question I have for you, and this is actually a question that you get to ask your future self at the next episode check-in. Uh,
yeah.
what question would you want yourself to answer in a few weeks from now? That you just want to have your future self answer on the show?
Oh, that's a difficult one. Oh, I maybe I know. If did I run enough loops to go to the Dutch team for the World Champions of the Backyard? Because that's in April, so that's in a few weeks.
Amazing. We will know that answer the next time we check in. As one of our Stryd ambassadors, you update your social media or you talk about your running and stuff. Do you want to let people know where they can maybe follow along your journey if they're curious about following along on social media? Do you have a social media profile that you might want to share and tell people where to find you?
Now they can find me on Instagram. And yeah, if they go to Stryd page, they can find me, or they can search me up on Monica Sports 9.
Awesome. We will put that in the description as well if anybody is kind of curious too. And I'm super excited to get the answer to the question of did Monica run enough loops to make the Dutch team? I want to thank you so much for coming on. We are looking forward to tracking your progress, but then also hearing your check-ins and kind of the recap at the end of this whole training journey. I, for one, am amazed and astounded from the variety of different types of running that you've done, and then having huge, massive goals, I think is so inspiring. And I feel like going out for a run right now, just from talking with you just for this past little bit too. So I want to thank you again. And we look forward to catching up with you in a few weeks from now. And best of luck over the next 2 weeks before this next check-in race.
Yeah, thank you. And also thank you for having me.